everyone, and welcome to another session of Exploration Tech. We haven't had one in a while. It's been tough sledding, but everyone's been busy, so that's super positive. Very excited to have Phil Coerper join us today from Ringling Business Solutions. And before we get into it, I'd like to just kick it off with a few intros. I'll let Lori go ahead and start us off.
Yes, I'm really excited about our conversation. Really excited, Phil, to have you here today. A little bit about me. I started Brilliance in 1998. My background's in computer electrical engineering. What most people remember about me is that I worked at NASA Johnson Space Center as a flight controller for the Space Shuttle program, which was a really fun job. I ended up meeting my husband there. He eventually took a job with Rockwell Automation, and that brought us to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where Rockwell's headquarters are. And I was trying to figure out what could be as cool as space. And so I decided to start a web development company. And we realized that we were kind of uniquely equipped to work in the B2B digital space. My husband managed the largest data warehouse at Rockwell Automation and worked with Rockwell's distributors. And now, like 12 years ago, they've left Rockwell, and now he leads our development team. We've grown to a team of 25, and we're growing. And along that way, I met Phil. And Phil, I think we started working together in 2019 when you were the president and customer of ours. And then you joined our customer advisory board in 2020. And before you introduce yourself, I'll just say that from my perspective, I just always found you to be someone who has really great business advice and also really has a good technical understanding and an understanding of the challenges that mid-market manufacturers, distributors are encountering. So which is why I'm just really excited about the conversation that we're going to have here today. And so I'll pass it to you, Phil, to introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Lori. Well, I got a hard act to follow, my own act. but really appreciate the invite and really great to be here. I'm also in southeastern Wisconsin at this point. So I come to digital transformation and from a little different spot. I come from the C-suite and senior management. So I grew up in Milwaukee, went to engineering school, then to business school, and worked for a company here that was in the industrial boiler business. Grew into a running their largest business unit, relocated to upstate New York and helped a family business that was also in a similar space, commercial boilers, and then ended up getting into private equity. And my wife and I, for about 20 years, were gypsies, and we kind of jumped all over about every 3 to 5 years. At an exit of a private equity sponsored or a family office sponsored or a family business sponsored business, and ran those businesses, grew them, and always was using digital tools to accelerate growth. So I've always just had a lot of passion for the IT side, and they were mid-markets. A lot of them, like you say, Lori, were manufacturing mid-markets. So they were smaller, so there was no chief information officer, often not a CFO. So I would play those positions. And I've been in St. Louis for up until a year ago, the last 8 years. And my wife said enough of the gypsy life, so we relocated back to Wisconsin near some grandkids, and then stood up Ringling Business Solutions last spring. And so we're basically our business model is to help executive teams really understand their core business and come to it from that end, and then really align their digital strategy to accelerate that core business. So looking forward to the conversation, and great to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Phil. All right, a few more housekeeping items, then we can get into the topic at hand here. If you have any questions during the session, feel free to punch them into the chat box, and we'll do our best to address those throughout the conversation today. And then lastly, if you're watching this on YouTube, do us a favor, comment, like, subscribe. It definitely goes a long way in helping us continue to create great educational content. And the last thing I'll say, I invite you all to connect with Phil on LinkedIn, as well as Brilliance Business Solutions. All right, let's get into it. To kick us off, let's talk about the challenges that businesses are facing right now, and why a digital transformation strategy is imperative. Who wants to take that one first? Phil?
I'll jump in to get us started. You know, every company and all of us are at some stage of digital transformation. We're making more and more investments in technology. The technology is affordable, it's amazing, but it's still costly, and it still takes good thinking. But these last years have really been something. I mean, as we're going on that journey and companies are on that journey, look at the disruptions. You've had COVID, you've had supply chain issues, now inflation issues, potential recession issues. and that have really made it challenging, where these digital transformation products or the front end products, be they the e-commerce products or the back end ERP products or some of the other logistics and supply chain things you can really leverage, but also there's not the extra money and you got to get it right. So this environment puts a lot of pressure that you can get a lot of help with implementing these strategies and using these as accelerators for your business, but also there's a lot of risk because there's pressure on the business to start with.
There's been so much talk about how COVID changed, really accelerated what we were already seeing, which, the shift that exists for buyers to move to self-service options and digital. And yet, even, that shift that happened is not all of the challenges that COVID created. There are so many other things that happened as well in that. And I guess I'll turn it back to you, Phil. I'm curious about how else you've seen COVID change the ability of businesses to strategize and plan.
Well, the first thing is it happened unannounced and suddenly. And so the company that I was leading at that point, I mean, we, like a lot of companies, we went to a remote workforce and implemented that in a week. And with everything that went along with that, and technology all of a sudden was all we were talking about. If you recall, there was all of a sudden you couldn't buy a laptop; they all just were gone. And we're setting up home Wi-Fi connections and all these things. So technology was really at the forefront, and then trying to figure out, how do we deal with our workforce? How do we deal with when people are ill? How do we deal with retaining our workforce, more or less forecasting? So COVID made a big impact right out of the gate. But then some businesses did very well, and I don't know, this is talked about a lot. A lot of business got a real bump. If you were in any home improvement or a furniture business or something that was an investment at home, or these types of platforms, for example, did extremely well. Zoom took off, and so there was a bubble, if you will, for those couple of years that a lot of businesses all of a sudden were doing really well. And then you come out the other side of COVID. And now the question is, okay, well, what's the real runway rate of the business? Is that, am I going to keep on this track, or am I going to do something different? And then supply chain hits. And now getting the equipment or getting the services delivered is become difficult. So during COVID, the technology is, if I don't have an omni-channel B2C platform, maybe my distribution isn't even open, maybe my customers are buying more, I better get that front end platform so that I can be selling in an omni way or through multiple channels and multiple ways to market. And I needed to do that yesterday. Then supply chain hits, and I look and I say, okay, if I don't have the supply chain set and multiple ways to manage that and understand that supply and really leverage that, and that's in real time, well, there's great technology for that too. And now we're moving into an inflationary period. Well, if I'm not really managing price and I'm not really managing margin and really understanding that, there's technology for that too. So the connection I see is these problems are creating pressure, and the tech is there to solve them, but people have to really implement quickly and correctly the first time.
I so agree with you, both in terms of what I've seen from our clients, what I've experienced ourselves in our business. I mean, I think just the need to be able to execute quickly and the difficulty in planning. I know that many organizations used to plan, for annually, right? And yet, I think a lot of things are causing organizations to look at how they need to be planning in much shorter cycles as things are changing and trying to. And to your point, Phil, like challenges in terms of how to forecast or how to predict, like what is going to happen next and how. What do we need to prioritize? Because there are so many things that leadership teams need to be executing on. And to your point, there really isn't margin for error. Like they have to move quickly, and they have to move quickly in a space where they likely, in many cases, at least for many of our clients, don't have a lot of a depth of an existing team that's experienced in this kind of digital transformation work.
And that depth, along with that pressure, is interesting, Lori. So there's a real dichotomy here. If you look at least the clients that I've worked with and the companies that I've led, the legacy systems, the backbone systems, were kind of cobbled or built piecemeal. So a lot of times you got, kind of these different systems, the integrations are maybe clunky, the data management is maybe clunky,
Yep.
might still be sitting on AS400 technology, and they've added something on the front end, they've added BigCommerce or something on the front end to manage it, or Optimizely. And so they're putting these together and they're saying, well, if we're gonna really make a transformation, well, let's get it right this time. Let's think it through, let's get it right. Let's not recreate kind of this cobbled together thing that is our IT tech stack and architecture. And then you get these pressures and they don't have the time really to do it right. We're right back into that mode. Well, I need to have this website up. I need to have this 3 p.m., this virtual 3 p.m. running. I need to have, this ERP up and running. And so I think where clients can really do themselves a service is get some good people around you that are, that can help you just settle down and look at what's your business case, what are you really trying to accomplish, what are the workflows that really matter, and now how does the tech work in that? And you can put a lot of tech on top, but if we don't prioritize why we're really doing it and what we're really trying to get out of it, remember, you got to maintain that technology after the fact too. And if it's not providing value for you or value for the people that are running it, then you're going to end up right back where you started with, kind of a cobbled together IT strategy and not a successful business strategy.
Really great advice.
Yeah. Going back to something Lori had said around leadership teams, and actually one of the reasons I was most excited about having you join us, Phil, is as I reflect on the guests that we've had for Exploration Tech, we really haven't had someone who has the type of experience that you have outside of Lori, working with C-level teams. So rewinding back to that, there's a lot of pressure right now on leadership teams. With your experience, I know you understand what those leadership teams are going through, and I'm curious, how does Ringling Business Solutions help?
So first of all, it starts really basic and really unintrusive. Just another set of eyes. Just let's get another set of eyes to say, have we asked, especially if you're about to approve a budget or you're about to approve another pretty large initiative on the IT side or on the technology side, to get another set of eyes to look at that and say, okay, what's your core business? What's really happening here? What are you trying to do to accelerate that? Are there conflicts there? What are maybe some questions that you haven't asked before you firm up your decision to move forward with that? And it might be project management, to Lori's earlier point. It might be just your support team. It could be that there's a conflict. Maybe there's a channel conflict. You're going to a B2C type of technology and you're traditionally B2B. How are you going to make it so that you're not threatening the channel that you have? How are you going to set up? Maybe you're just starting with map pricing. How are you going to make sure that that is thought about? So we come in very simply and just say, let's get another set of eyes, kick the tires on what you're doing, and give you some questions that maybe will help you really focus on what's important and try to add value through that. And then if there's some additional support, then that happens because the client sees some value in what we're doing and says, okay, this has been very helpful to us to, if nothing else, feel more confident in our plan. The executive leadership teams are extremely competent and they're very motivated, and they're already navigating these rough waters. They're very, very solid teams of people. They also will tend to feel uncomfortable. A lot of people in the C-suite or in the senior areas, they don't have the IT background. And so they're implementing these plans. Even if you can get their confidence higher, that can really add a lot of value where they're more sure of themselves when they're getting into the execution mode. And I'm sure you guys are seeing that too on your customers, as they're just saying, okay, I think I'm doing this right, but I'm not really sure that we've got the right path and the right plan.
Definitely. Phil, I think what you're offering is so valuable. And your point about confidence is a really good one. I think having someone like yourself who's been in their shoes in the past, right, and who also has that experience with digital to be able to serve as a sounding board to help them work through things that are seen as potential like roadblocks. And to your point, many times they'll likely have the answers themselves. It's a matter of reflecting that back, offering advice where you can in terms of things you've seen before, and enabling their teams to stay focused. So executing quickly means we need to be focused, we need to have alignment, and coming back to something you said earlier, being really clear on like what's the value you're trying to create. Because I think one of the dangers that exists as you go through projects like this is that you start with one objective in mind, and then a lot of other stuff can get thrown in that can kind of slow things down. And so when you need to execute quickly and well, just really being clear on those business outcomes and the value that you're trying to create. So.
And it's hard, and it takes a little time, but it doesn't take a month of Sundays. It takes a little time to take just a breath and take a little more holistic view over what are we really trying to accomplish here from the core business objectives aligned with the investments being made in technology, especially if those investments are expanding, which a lot of the clients that we have, they're expanding. I had a conversation with a client in the early Q&A last year, and they showed me their existing technology architecture, and it was one of those, cobwebs of different systems that you see. And in this particular case, they were looking at a pretty major ERP implementation. I said, okay, well, and they had a lot of diverse different systems that were integrated, and they were writing a lot of APIs, and they had a lot going on around making this whole thing work. And so I said, well, show me your future state. And I'll never forget the answer. I said, we don't have time to put together future state. That would take weeks. And it reminded me of someone driving 80 miles an hour down the road to get to the next town, but has opened the map and said, okay, but ultimately, where are we trying to go?
Yeah.
Now, that may sound like it's really hard to get a picture, to draw just a decent picture of what your future state is. But even if that's the thought process and you take several weeks and get that so it's on paper, the conversation you're going to have around that is going to save you a bunch of time, a bunch of money, and it's going to focus your investments on the things that matter. And the other thing I'll say about holistic view is it's hard. Most ROI is taking a piece of the investment. We're going to stand up this site, or we're going to add this particular software, or we're going to evaluate what our tax software is, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you just do the things in the pieces that have the most ROI and you disregard other things and you don't look more, how are you improving your business with more of a look at the package, you're going to be disappointed in the ROI. You're going to miss the right investments, and you may get ROI, but it's going to be much smaller money than really getting the whole strategy right and aligned with your business.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the things that I think is really interesting that we've heard, from Gartner Research and from some other places is that they really advocate for looking, to your point, like holistically in the B2B space, especially when we're talking about digital. There can be people who will look and say, well, did my online revenue grow to pay for this investment? Where they should be looking at is customers that are now using our digital experiences. Are they spending more with us? Like the orders may not be coming in off your website, but it might be that people who are leveraging your digital tools are now spending more with you or more loyal. And so to your point, it's a much more holistic view of the customer experience that we might think about from like one specific feature or function.
Right, and on that point, the picking just defining what success is in a very basic way, also helps you, first of all, celebrate the wins. Because we're all the same way. We hit a milestone, we say, okay, that was great, but now what's next? Let's get to third base now. So you want to celebrate the double that you hit. It also helps you focus on really the right things. And the other piece of holistic that I like to think about, and I think resonates with folks that I speak with and clients that we have, is that, let's say, so your example of B2B house, and they stand up maybe a B2C type of functionality and they get success. They're probably gonna like the margin performance, and they're growing that, and they're getting maybe closer to the customer journey that they have more on the consumer side in the farther front end. But have they thought about what that means as that business grows? That all of a sudden now the velocity of product the lead time of product and the whole fulfillment side of that, including potentially dealing with last mile. Have they thought about what other things have to go along that they got to make sure they align as they're succeeding in that strategy? Because it's real easy to say, oh, great, we're getting a bunch of orders on this website, and you turn and say, yeah, but our warehouse functionality and our backend functionality isn't there to support now that we're getting 2,000 orders a day when we used to be processing 1,000 orders a day. And instead of them being $5,000 each, they're $750. And we got to deal with freight, which is now 25% of the sale, and it used to be 4%. And these things are part of connecting the business process to that technology.
Yeah. Yes, really good points. So you can see both in terms of it's important to be clear on success and also recognize that some growth can also create new challenges that you need to be ready for, right? Where do you see the greatest opportunities for growth in digital transformation with the clients that you're working with and just in the industry as a whole?
Yeah, I think it's the front end platforms are getting so powerful. And you also have options. You have options to get some really great deep functionality from your e-commerce platform or other customer-facing platforms, Service Cloud platforms or marketing types of platforms that you can get. I still think that's really where the action is, because that's customer facing and allowing real change and real acceleration of go-to-market strategies and multiple go-to-market strategies. There's still that back end that's got to be kept up, but you have options now. I mean, now there's headless out there. So now they're saying, okay, well, how much customization do I want to put into that? And how much involvement do I want my IT team, especially in a little larger company, in doing that customization? Headless, if you haven't heard that term, it's really interesting, and it allows customization to be done by your team at a very accelerated rate, especially in the B2C space. It's very powerful, and it also allows you to build a best-of-class ecosystem around what your core system is doing. And then you can go the other way and you could say, okay, there's also some real deep product where I can buy that have everything pretty much on one platform that I need, and it has great UI for me to be able to have non-IT people to really manage that platform for me. And certainly Optimizely falls into that space, a very powerful platform with amazing UI on the background where people can really optimize it. So I think it's still customer facing and customer connecting. I'll put one more piece on that. Big data is talked about a lot, and it's used some, and AI is also a nice conversation, and you'll see smatterings of that around, but those are still very early in how much they can really help, especially mid-market companies, to leverage that type of stuff and be able to play even as a mid-market or a mid-sized company or SME even, to be able to play as if you're in one, as right up against the big boys, because you're leveraging the technology as well as big data, as well as some AI that helps your customer journey really be efficient and successful.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There is so much to big data or data as a whole in terms of how to use that. But if you can leverage the data you have, I mean, that's one of the great things that manufacturers have, that many is a lot of data on their customers. And so they have the potential to really leverage that in a way that they can demonstrate how, and distributors can do this too, demonstrate how they can save their customers money, but like by the knowledge they have for them, like help their customers to do their job more efficiently, leveraging the data that they have. The other thing that I think is really interesting when it comes to AI is organizations that are leveraging live chat, like chat assisted software, and using AI to automate some of the responses that are really common to enable customers to self-serve. The technology is improving. Recently I saw some software that scans spec sheets for companies and uses that to have knowledge about how to help customers find the right product with a chatbot. So there's just such interesting tech out there. And to your point, Phil, there are so many options for organizations to be looking at right now.
And let's just put a little bit on your team and the resources and the skill set side of this as well. We didn't even include BI on that, right? The business intelligence capability. Yep. Really start to understand the attributes and the journeys your customers are taking and start putting the right information and the right products in front of their journey is extremely powerful stuff and can really help. And it has strong functionality in the platforms that are out there right now. But the skill sets, the one I'll put out there a real opportunity and a little bit of a cautionary tale. The skill sets that you need, there's a lot of people that you have that can get into merchandising, that can get into learning how to run the back end UI to make sure that your website is running well, that can really get into data management and BI and getting the right information and the right reports for people in the business to, instead of wrangling that data, trying to get it into a spreadsheet, they have it and they're able to use it and spend their energy using it. So that's very exciting. But good people and skilled people are hard to find, and that's only getting harder. So it is a matter of journeying your people to that and getting those right skill sets. But the cautionary tale on this is we're used to, as business leaders, that when the business goes down, and there will be business cycles, a recession is probably likely, so there's going to be business cycles here that might impact you. Be careful about thinning down people that are doing a function that may look like overhead to you. It may not be overhead. It may be very vital to you growing the front end of your business, because what they're doing on the tech side is really making sure your customers are buying more, to your earlier point, Lori, getting more share of wallet out of those customers because they're really working the tech in that customer favor.
Yes. Yeah, I so agree. So what does it look like to tie the tech to business outcomes? You have some specific examples of how you've seen organizations do that successfully.
First of all, to go a little deeper, I think I kind of gave you the high level of that, but it comes down to finding something that's really important to the business outcome. Right? We're entering this market with these products. We've put a lot of money into product development. We've put a lot of energy into market research and understanding the market and getting our channels set. And now we're entering that market. Make sure that that's where you're putting your money on the tech side too. And what could your technology, your current stack or your future investments in technology do to help accelerate that particular market? And it's very easy to be kind of too broad brush and not focus on the fact we've already put all of this development into this initiative. And then you look and say, okay, that was a big piece, and that's one of our top 3 initiatives this year. And then you look at the investment in the tech and in the platforms, and they may be completely misaligned. They may be off doing something that's a good idea, but doesn't align and accelerate what they're already doing. So I think the most important part of that answer is start with, what do you think is going to really improve your business this year, next year? Where are you investing, be it channel, product, infrastructure, new markets, acquisitions, whatever that is, and then say, okay, is my investment on technology accelerating those things? To me, that's the most important question to get good answers about.
Absolutely. I know that we, as a systems implementer of tech, can be most effective when our clients are able to articulate and share that information with us. Like here's our strategy, here's what's most important for us. Then we can align our recommendations and our work to that. And just it helps to drive more value. I think that's just really great, wise advice.
And I'll make one other quick point. Really do your homework when you're picking the technology, because it's confusing. And frankly, everybody says they can do everything, and it's not true. Do your research or find some folks that can help you with the research. I find that if you look at where they came from to where they are, you find out where their real lane is. And one criticism I have of the software industry is software sales folks, they tend not to really maximize their lane. They try to be too much to too many people. So in the selection process, that's important. And then even more important than that, find yourself a great SI. Find yourself someone that's going to help you implement that. And I'm going to give a plug to Brilliance on this, a shameless plug, sorry, but we ended up struggling on the SI front on the project that Lori's team helped us with. And we made a change to Brilliance Business Solutions after we had started the implementation of the project, because we didn't like the way it had started. What a difference it makes when you get a good partner on the SI. So that's your most important choice. And your third one, I know we're almost out of time, is don't sleep on project management. Make sure you really got great people in the PM spot and a great SI. And then even if you're picking a platform that's close to what you need, but not exactly what you need, you'll overcome that as long as the platform choice is appropriate for what you're trying to do.
Yes, that's great.
Fantastic. And thank you for the shameless plug. And I'd love to end with one final question. I know you told us a little bit about Ringling Business Solutions and your process, but it's two parts. Can you tell us more about your process? And then part two, if someone today, heard something that resonated with them and they'd like to connect with you, can you share how they should go about engaging with you?
Right. So first of all, the name, I can't get through a conversation without at least mentioning the name. So my great-great-grandfather was one of the original Ringling brothers of circus fame. So my middle name is Ringling. So that's where the name comes from. If you're wondering why I would pick that name. The initial assessment, we try to make very seamless and very easy. So you're not having to make a major decision until you get to know me and get to know us. And then from there, we're going to collaborate and say, okay, where are your gaps? Are your gaps in selection? Are your gaps on the tech side? Is your gap in project management? Do you just want a good advisor on the team? And we'll align an engagement around those gaps and make sure that what we set up is a lasting relationship, which is really what all of us seek. And for me personally, that's really what's important. So you can get in touch with me at ringlingbusinesssolutions.com, certainly on LinkedIn, phil@ringlingbusinesssolutions.com, or just look up my name on LinkedIn. It's spelled a little funny, Coerper, or just hit the website. You'll see on a lot of spots that we can set up a quick Zoom call for half an hour and just have a conversation if you want to follow up on that. And again, let's start with a little understanding of what you're doing, some questions that maybe you haven't thought to ask, maybe a few areas of topic that maybe look like a gap in your thinking, and then from there, if there's a positive value relationship, then we'll build from there.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you, Phil. Really, we really value you taking time out of your very busy schedule to support this, and I hope everyone who joined today saw value in this as well. We'll certainly follow up with the recording, and if you have questions for any of us, feel free to engage. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and yeah, take care.
Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Lori. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Phil.